We have an unexpected Fox News alert for you, something that has just happened in Iraq. The situation there heating up very quickly without any debate here in Washington. Iraqi television has just confirmed that Qasem Soleimani, a former general in Iran's Revolutionary Guard and a commander of the Quds Force, has been killed in a rocket attack, apparently initiated by the United States, near the Baghdad airport, along with the top official in the Iraqi Shiite militia. Now, what were they doing in Iraq? Unclear. But his death comes several days after tensions kind of came out into the open in that country. Last week, if you've been following this, you know, an American civilian contractor was killed by militants in Iraq. The U.S. government blamed that attack on Iran and it retaliated with strikes. In response, protesters blockaded the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. It's basically where we were when the show started tonight. Defense Secretary Mark Esper warned that the United States is prepared to launch additional preemptive military strikes against Iranian interests in the region, which apparently are what we are seeing right now. Now, again, there's been virtually no debate or even discussion about this, but America appears to be lumbering toward a new Middle East war. And we have to say it's one that official Washington has wanted for decades. For example, disgraced National Security Advisor John Bolton has made it his life's mission to start a war with Iran. And tonight, Bolton may be finally getting his wish. Should you be happy about that? That's the question. Well, the last time we took John Bolton's advice in the region, Iran became far more powerful than it was before we took John Bolton's advice. Why? Because things are never quite as simple as they claim they are in Washington. In this case, the very people demanding action against Iran tonight, the ones telling you the Persian menace is the greatest threat we face, are the very same ones demanding that you ignore the invasion of America now in progress from the south. The millions, the tens of millions of foreign nationals living among us illegally, the torrent, more significantly, of Mexican narcotics that has killed and disabled entire generations of Americans. Nobody cares, in case you haven't noticed. Pay no attention to all of that. These very same people tell us the real threat is Iran. Well, they're liars, and they don't care about you. They don't care about your kids. They're reckless and incompetent. And you should keep all of that in mind as war with Iran looms closer tonight. Kurt Mills is a senior writer at The American Conservative. He joins us now. So, Kurt, this is unfolding even as we speak. Where could it go from here?
Well, like you said, if you liked the Iraq War, Tucker, we're back with the sequel, the Iran War. I would say the deep concern is, look, a general in the Iranian forces being assassinated is not necessarily something to mourn or begrudge the U.S. getting involved in.
That's
but
right. I agree.
The question is, though, is this a Franz Ferdinand moment? Is this a situation where a great power gets involved with a middle-tier power and gets the world into a world war? Iran, I think, is a problem for the U.S. and its allies in the region, but it is not an existential threat like China or Russia. China or Russia, particularly China, would love to see another decade or two of Americans my age dying in the sand for no particular purpose.
Well, that's exactly it. It's not that anyone, I think, in the United States has particular affection for Iran or trusts its government, much less it's the Revolutionary Guard or the Quds forces. Of course not. But it's the intemperance with which the foreign policy establishment in Washington describes the threat that I think makes sensible people nervous, that Iran is the greatest threat we face. I mean, it's so prima facie absurd that it makes you wonder what their actual agenda is.
It's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, I think the real question is, why do we still have troops there? So you see the Baghdad embassy protests. And to be clear, this is not just an embassy. This is a fortress. It's been a fortress since we took out Saddam in 2003. And American troops there, if we're not going to re-annex the country, are effectively hostages. They're sent there. So the question, the president, who I think rightfully ran in 2016 against the Bush legacy, the question is, does he want to re-invade Iraq? I understand there are people in his cabinet that are selling him that Iran is not Iraq. But the fact of the matter is, Iran is quite similar to Iraq. We're talking about Iraq. 16 years later, it's still Iraq. In order to counter Iran, I think the choice is clear. The president should contain Iranian influence in the region, but should avoid a hot war, which we are barreling towards at all costs.
So my sense of it is the president doesn't seek war, and he's wary of it, particularly in an election year. But I think he was elected on the promise that he would avoid wars except when absolutely necessary. But there are a lot of people around him, and certainly in the city of Washington, who've been preparing for this, agitating for it. Bolton's one of many, for an awfully long time. And you wonder if it's possible that he might be outmaneuvered by them, and that we might find ourselves moving toward war despite what the president wants.
Right. So I think the President of the United States' convictions on this matter are sincere, but I think it's relevant, particularly extremely relevant in matters of war and peace and life and death, who he staffed his administration with. I know Bolton is a bugbear for you, but in some ways Bolton, because he's so flamboyant and so infamous and notorious, he actually was a bit of a problem for the Iran Hawk crusade. More middleweight, more circumspect managers like Robert C. O'Brien, the Bolton's successor, might actually be more effective at Trojan horsing what I think would be a tragedy in the Middle East. Iran is not Iraq. It's twice as big. It'd be twice as bad. We're weaker than we were 16 years ago. If President George W. Bush struggled to win re-election in 2004, if Trump does this, he's cooked.
I think that's right. Kurt Mills, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that.
Thanks.